Hey, so how's it, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of FANatics. My name is Alex, and joining me this week are my esteemed colleagues Tiejo and Herman. Now, guys, this week we're going to take a look at some of the stuff that FAN has been doing over the past few days. I know you're thinking, well, it's the past few days has also been the weekend. Well, yep, that's what we do to fight for your freedom. So, Herman, we have been sending out quite a few press releases around some work that we've been doing, and it relates to a media item that we were alerted to on Friday, I believe. And it is this piece from EWN, which says Chris Hani Baragwanath hospital interns battle to survive as salaries go unpaid. So, Herman, can you give us a little bit of background as to what the story is about and what fans' reaction was?
Yeah, no. It's always distressing to hear about these things. There are so many government failures, but when something is so clearly on the nose of it, on the face of it, clearly down to just government not doing its job, not taking the citizens or the people working for it seriously, it really quite jars. So the moment FAN found out about this, we exchanged it on our WhatsApp groups and we discussed it, and we immediately decided that someone's got to take a stand for these people. These are young people. They are not getting money. They don't have the resources necessarily to fight this fight, and that's what FAN is about, to really get involved. And fight for freedom. In this case, the freedom to earn, the freedom to do your job and to work hard and to get a salary. That freedom was under threat here. And these young South Africans really, vulnerable, made left vulnerable by the government. I mean, you read that article and you read coverage. It's harrowing. These people couldn't pay landlords. They couldn't pay food. They lost weight, emotional, physical suffering. So FAN decided this is something we need to step into, and we immediately consulted with our lawyers, planned a legal strategy, and got on to fact-finding. The first thing, if you want to build a case, is you've got to get the facts. We started reaching out to the intern community, and that sort of campaign started building over the weekend. And on Monday morning, we alerted the media to what we've done. We started contacting the community with more aggression on social media, making sure that people in this situation, these interns and perhaps others on the receiving end of this sort of government abuse, could really have a voice and could have a partner in FAN willing to fight for them, able to fight for them. And it was something that we felt strongly about, and we kicked it off. Got the press release out, got the forms up there, got the details of interns, hit the ground running, because we were preparing for a fight. But spoiler alert, it seems that the fight was shorter than we thought, but a happier ending than we could have thought.
For sure. And Tiocho, the press release was sent out in your name, and one of the things that you highlighted was that for an employer to do this in any case is a disgrace, but specifically, and I'll quote what you said: for any employer to abuse an employee is shameful. For the government of the country to do this to young South Africans trying to help others in the health sector is nothing short of a disgrace. And I absolutely love that characterization. And we've just emerged, let me not say emerged, we are emerging from a health pandemic where we should be priding ourselves on ensuring that our medical fraternity has everything they need in order to deliver healthcare services that can save lives to ordinary South Africans. What is your feeling about the way that the government as an employee in this situation has behaved, and what South Africans together with FAN can do about this kind of disgraceful maltreatment of employees?
The facts of the story. What happened at the Department of Health in Gauteng was that the department went ahead and hired interns without first and foremost consulting the treasury. Now there are rules to hiring new people as a department, right? And part of the rules is that you first have to consult the treasury. Provincial treasury has to approve a budget for those employees. Only after the budget for those employees has been approved, you then create the positions within the department and hire the people, then you are able to pay their salaries. But quite clearly in this instance, those processes were not followed, and someone must be held accountable for this. within the department, whoever it is, whoever the people are, who approved the employment of these interns without positions existing that they would be occupying should be held accountable. Now, what I think civil society has to do is that civil society has to pressurize, or people, South Africans in general, including us as FAN, if possible, in fact, we must pressurize the provincial treasury in Gauteng to put pressure on the health department, point out who the people behind this whole thing are, the people who approved the employment of these interns without the approval from treasury, and those people should be held to account. It can't be acceptable that processes that are around in the government of hiring people are not followed. People are hired at any given point in time without relevant procedures being followed. And I think here in Limpopo in particular, I know the note that speaks to this question is note 14 of the provincial treasury. It's a note that says that any department that wants to hire should first and foremost come to the treasury, get the new structure approved by the treasury, then move from there.
So, I mean, Herman, so Tiago mentions accountability, and it's something that we don't see generally in South Africa. So to the person at home sitting on the couch watching this, how can they demand accountability from a government that seemingly cares less and less about them, because it seems like a very abstract thing. So how can we make it real for someone? I mean, we try our best here to generate some sort of reaction from the powers that be. We try and speak truth to power. How can ordinary South Africans get on board that train of demanding accountability?
So there are a few ways for the citizen to get involved. Number one, voting. Voting is really where it all happens. The people appointed to appoint the people who made this mistake were voted in by the people of Gauteng. I live in Gauteng. It's the Gauteng voter sort of has to look at things around them and decide, am I happy with how things are? Is this how I want things to be? Imagine those interns are my kids or my brother, my sister, myself, whoever. Would I be happy with that sort of treatment? If yes, then no, by all means, go on voting or go on not voting. But if you feel that's not quite the way you treat people, how about you do something about it? If you didn't vote in the previous election, make plans to vote in the next election. It's very, very easy to see if you're registered. You go on the IEC website, you get the DA, ANC, EFF. These parties have mechanisms on their website to check your registration status. So that's the first one, is pitch. Decisions are made by those who show up. So show up. If you didn't show up last time, how about you start doing that? It's not good enough. It's not good enough to think, politics, it never changes anything. We have just in these recent elections seen how close some of these governments are based on, very small differences of vote. 1 seat, 2 seats in councils, making a difference, determining who's in charge, who's getting the taxpayers' money, who gets to spend it, who gets to make the decisions, and who gets to treat ordinary people like these interns as employees on behalf of the state as employer. If you want to change things, but you don't show up to vote, consider me skeptical about your commitment to change. So that's the first thing, voting. The second thing is community activism. If you know any of those medical interns, if they are your neighbor or your neighbor's son or daughter or cousin or whoever, why not speak to them and get them the facts and say, who hired you? I want to go speak to them as well with you so that this person can see it's not just you, young medical intern, carping on about this. It's actually a question that people are concerned about. Get involved on a personal level where you can. I mean, the world has 6 degrees of separation. There's no excuse for suffering to go in South Africa without a responsible, politically aware South African not knowing about it and not being able to at least get the facts and get involved at a very basic level. And then the third thing is join FAN. That's what we do. We spend our working days trying to figure out what are the problems we can fix. We care about freedom. Here's a freedom to earn a salary infringed upon. What can we do? Watch FAN's content, share FAN's content, join us, support us on a monthly basis, because that's where FAN's financial support goes, to fighting cases like this, to creating the awareness around cases like this. And if you're skeptical about these methods, well, then we have just to look at the fact that these interns have now been paid. This is a success, not just for FAN, but anyone who cared enough about this to say, hey, well, now this cannot happen. It's not good enough to happen. It's getting involved. It's a bit of that question like, how do you raise a good child? Well, I mean, there are some broad themes you can touch on, but you can't instruct, at 7:15, brush teeth, 7:17, put in bed, read bedtime story for 9 minutes tops. No, figure it out where you are. You have a responsibility here, and we can lay down themes, but unless people are willing to step up, this sort of injustice is going to continue as it has continued for the last 30 years.
Absolutely. And I think what's important to remember is that lack of accountability has real world consequences. I mean, if we think about maybe some people in our audience might not remember, but there's been an ongoing issue but it stemmed in the early 2010s with the Gauteng Department of Health not being able to look after the transfer of mental ill patients, of which over 140 died in the hands of the government effectively. So, guys, these issues do have real world consequences. And as Herman said, reach out to us at Badger of Liberty is where you can find our stuff. You can also get in touch with us, slide into our DMs, tell us what's happening in your community, and we will help where we can. Tiago, any final thoughts before we cross over to our next issue?
Well, my final thoughts connect with what I've already said. I think I agree with Herman that society has to rise up and start holding government to account. I mean, this is our government after all. There's no government without the people, and salaries that are paid to government staff are salaries that are collected from us as citizens. It's our taxes that are paying these people. So we really should start taking ownership of government, and where things are not going well, we should step in. The government really is our company, and matters of how it's ran are matters that concern us, and we should rise up to the occasion and start holding the people who are in charge of government to account.
Absolutely. We're all stakeholders, as the government is one to say. So on the topic of voting and being involved, our next feature today, and I'll read this little snippet from our press release last week, was that the Freedom Advocacy Network, acting on behalf of the Freedom for Democrats, has today issued a court application in the Northwest High Court, Mahikeng, to correct the allocation of seats for the 2021 local government elections in the Ramotsere Moela Local Municipal Council. Herman, what exactly was FAN doing in the Northwest? Herman, you are muted, sir.
The problem is, when I'm muted, I speak the most sense. We've been involved in this situation for a few months now, and it actually started worryingly close to the day I got married last year, because I could see sort of in my wife-to-be at that stage eyes that here's an issue that might, he's going to carry this through the honeymoon. We're not going to have a moment's rest. Herman's going to be on his cell phone responding to emails, trying to get something done, because the elections early November last year in this part of the Northwest, in the Zeerust area, delivered a situation where the EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters, the Red Berets, Mr. Malema's Army of Muppets, were supposed to receive 5 proportional seats in the local government there. But because of a counting mistake by the Electoral Commission, the IEC, they were allocated 6 seats. The party that should have gotten that 1 seat is the small party called the Forum for Democrats, a local party of local activists, people just like you, caring about what goes on in their community enough to stand for election. For a month, they tried to get the IEC to engage with them about this calculation error, because it's there in the numbers. They are incorrectly tabulated. They got nothing from the IEC. FAN then heard about the situation. We made contact with the FFD. We met with their leadership. We got our legal team onto it. We spoke to election data experts to figure out how can we approach this. And then we started doing the grunt work. Legal work isn't always dramatic. It's quite often, it's paperwork, it's getting the facts, getting to the bottom of things. We got the IEC to admit their mistake. After a month of ghosting the FFD, the ability of FAN to come in with a legal team, with funds, with a passion for free and fair elections, got the IEC to the table, admitting their mistake. That was the first key breakthrough. And then I got married and went on honeymoon. And when I came back, the problem hadn't gone away. In fact, it was still exactly the same, because how it works is the IEC allocates the seats and gives the numbers through to the municipality, but then it's up to the municipal manager to actually assign the seats to the parties that won them. And the municipal manager had assigned the seats incorrectly to the EFF, and the FFD, despite the IEC admitting their error, did not get their seat. Now, November, December, January, February, 4 months after the election, as of today, the seat is still not being allocated to the FFD. This is a shocking result, because the voters aren't getting who they voted for, and the FFD can't make their voice heard in the local government. But also, this is a small local party. It needs the funding. That one seat will secure it to make sure it stands up for its values. We tried to get in touch with the municipal manager multiple times. Nothing, which in and of itself is rather shocking. And now it's gotten to that point where FAN, the day after tomorrow, the 10th of March, we're in court in the Mahikeng High Court, and we're fighting for free and fair elections. This election was not free and fair. If it was, then the FFD would be in that seat standing up for their constituents. We're very excited about this. We think it can be very, very big, because it cuts to something that is key: your right to kick politicians out or vote new ones in. And also, we see in coalitions, 1 or 2 seats make a difference. That's why we're fighting this.
No, absolutely. Tioko, as Herman said, it's one seat. Now, typically one would think, like, it's okay, we can let this one slide. But to you, I mean, if you're a resident of this municipality, how would you feel? You had made the commitment on November 1st to go to the ballot box, to stand in queues, no matter what the weather was. I know in Cape Town it was dreadful. To go and make your voice heard, to bring about regime change in your community. Why is it important?
Well, I would feel betrayed. That's the first thing. As a voter living in a democracy, having been told that in a democratic state, the people choose who governs. And here I am, I went out to vote, made my choice. The person got enough votes to come into council, yet the person is not in council. First and foremost, I'd be disappointed. But the importance of this being corrected is that the people must have a voice. And the people have spoken in this instance that they want FFD to be the party that represents them. Even if it's in that one position, it's a position that people have given to the party. And so the people's choice should be listened to. We are in a democratic country after all. It's a right thing to do. In fact, insisting to stay in such a position, the EFF insisting to stay in that position, really is criminal. You are insisting to sit in a position that you are not elected into. You're forcing your way into the corridors of the municipality. It can't be accepted. And yeah, that's why we are fighting it as FAN.
Absolutely, definitely a fight worth having, and fighting for your freedom to lead as an ordinary South African. So definitely something to keep an eye out. We'll definitely keep you guys in the loop. And remember, guys, you can follow us at Badge of Liberty to get all the information around this case and more. And of course, if you're having issues in your own community similar to this, get in touch. info@f-an.net. So guys, on that note, thank you so much for joining us. We next up have a fiery episode of Burning Questions with Mbali coming up. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello and welcome to another fiery episode of #Burning Questions. Today on this episode, I'm joined by Diego, Alex, and Herman. Guys, welcome to another episode of Burning Questions.
Thanks, Mbali.
There we go. Guys, today we're looking at a code card from one of our friends. I'll call him our friends, Herbrand van Heerden, who is an analyst at the Center for Risk Analysis. So this code card, guys, is kind of linked to what you guys were talking about. And this code card reads, for too long, the government has believed that it needs to intervene in the economy in order to create jobs. What the government should do instead is to create an environment in which the private sector and the business can prosper. Herman, I'll throw it at you. What do you think about this code card? And share your thoughts.
I think it's great. I must say, I'm very, very tempted to just listen to Tiego's bass, baritone, smooth tones the whole time. Just, what a voice.
Amen.
But the thing is, politics often is made up to be very complex and difficult and ideological and so on. But we've got a few thousand years of it behind us as a human species. Yeah. We can read books and watch documentaries and understand what works and what doesn't. Or we don't have to go back 3,000 years, 2,000 years. We can go back 30 years, 10 years, 20 years and look at what has worked and what hasn't worked. And I think part of why Gerbrand's quote here is so good, and why I think Freedom Fanatics at home quite liked it, because a lot of people liked it, shared it. It did well on social media, was because it's just so straightforward, common sense, well put, that sometimes if the government does the same thing over and over and over, another intervention, but the results stay the same, that's starting to sound something like insanity to me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Alex, let me come to you. Do you think there's anything else that has worked, maybe for South Africa or maybe for other countries in terms of their economy? And what do you think can maybe work for South Africa now?
Yeah, for sure. So we one of our interns drafted an article sort of stating how healthy economies equal happy people. That was the gist of what he was arguing. And that's pretty much the gist of why you are part of a society. You exist to kind of add value and further your own, to improve your family, to be happy, to be healthy, and to be comfortable in your community. So I think what strikes me about this quote, and I think why it resonates, is, as Herman says, it's very straightforward. And one thing we are chatting about internally, Tiago can definitely vouch for this, is trying to explain the idea of classical liberalism as an ideology. And the one thing is that we kind of came to the conclusion is that it really
quick one for someone out there at home who does not know what a classical liberal is. Do you maybe give us like a 2-minute explain of what classical liberalism is?
For sure. So classical liberals are people like you and I. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Herman to give us the elevator pitch of what a classical liberal is.
I like what you did.
20 seconds.
I was trying to trap you. But you know what, HP, it will go on to you.
Put on the clock. If you believe in freedom of speech, that people have the right to say what their opinions are and to hear other opinions without anyone interfering and putting them in jail, you might be a classic liberal. If you think it's your right to decide what you spend your money on and what you do to earn some money, as long as it's acceptable to your community, you're a classical liberal. If you think that what you own is yours by right and not someone else's to decide what happens to it, I think you're a classical liberal. If you believe that people are individuals first and foremost and not just arms of some racial creature somewhere or some religious or cultural creature, if you look at another individual and you see a human being rather than a label, you might be a classic liberal. And if you think that the rule of law, not the rule of men or politicians or women or gangsters or pimps, is actually what it's all about. The rule of what's right, what's just, and what has been duly accepted as the law of a country. If you believe that should govern a society, I think you're a classical liberal.
Definitely. I think some people right now at home just found out that they're classical liberals. Definitely. Alex, maybe finish your point. I'm so sorry to disturb you.
No, absolutely. No, I think because classical liberalism is what underpins our fight at FAN for your freedom. And one thing I think will resonate strongly with people as we enter almost 2 years under a command council that is hopefully coming to an end is that is the strongest sense of the government intervening in our lives. And I think within the first month of lockdown, over 30 people were killed by law enforcement authorities. So just think about that. We don't need to even go into open-toed shoes, into banning hot food. It really, that speaks for itself.
Yeah, no, definitely. Mr. Diego, Herman has been longing to hear your voice. What are your thoughts on that quote?
Well, my thoughts on the code, I think the code is spot on. We really do need for the government to stop fiddling in our personal affairs as citizens. The government should really focus its attention on things that concern them, like I've mentioned last week. Things such as keeping citizens safe, things such as ensuring that important laws are adhered to and stuff of that nature. As far as our monies are concerned, how much I can spend on what, it's a choice that I should be able to make myself. If I'm producing a product as an entrepreneur, how much I charge for that product, it's no affair of the government. It's my own affair as a producer of this product. And what regulates how much I sell this thing for is the free market. If people don't want to buy the product because it's too expensive, then people will stop buying the product, and automatically I'll reduce the price of the product. People will start paying for it. So we should allow the free market to flourish and return to basics, really. Rules of supply and demand, allow that to regulate the market on its own. Don't intervene as a government.
Yeah, no, definitely. Guys, I think we've come to the end of our #burning questions fiery episode. Okay, Herman. Yes, you can go.
Sorry. I think if anyone takes one thing away from this episode, is that a government that can give you anything you want can take away anything it wants. A government that wants to solve all the problems don't trust ordinary people to solve those problems. That's what's at the heart of why we think, how about power to the people rather than power to the politicians?
Yeah, no, definitely. If there's any government official listening, let the people govern, man, And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, your freedom is worth fighting for.